Welcome everyone to our topic 10 overview video for our 2020-2021 math LRP. We are jumping into grade 5 for junior here so that we can have an overview. We're going to scroll down to topic 10, which is algebra and coding. All right, for topic 10, we are dealing with the expectation cluster C2 and C3, both in the algebra strand. C2 deals with demonstrating an understanding of variables, expressions, equalities, and inequalities, and applying this understanding in various contexts. And then C3 is a revisit of our coding expectation, solve problems, and create computational representations of mathematical situations using code concepts and skills. So big picture, really, C3 is a revisit, applying coding concepts, computation to, we're going to apply it, last time we did to location and movement, we're going to apply it this time to algebraic expressions and equations. We are helping students work with variables and symbols and equations and expressions and building understanding in those areas for this topic. So let's jump into our curriculum site. We're going to compare the grades here. This is just a table snapshot of two areas we're going to look at. We're going to look at variables and expressions, and then equations and inequalities across 4, 5, 6. All the information in this table, we're going to convert into a visual form like we did last time, so we can speak to the visual a little bit easier. So we have that right here. Okay, so we want to kind of pull out the continuum of learning across junior, but also reach back a little bit into primary so we can understand what's happening. And across primary, they're basically identifying and describing things. They're working with, changing values versus constant quantities. The things that are unknown can be shown in symbols and variables, and then they're using variables in grade 3. In the same way, working with equations, they're checking if something is equivalent or not with very simple forms of equations, and then that is growing in terms of the complexity in grade 2 and 3. And sometimes they're making things equivalent, and other times they're working with more operations there. So as we get into grade 4 and 5, we see that grade 4s in the variable section are working with identifying and using symbols. So they're working with variables and constants, kind of labeling those two things, understanding how variables and constants relate to one another. They're also working with defining what an expression is and what an equation is. Expressions are can involve unknowns like variables and numbers, but they don't follow or have a connection to an equal sign. There's no equal, it's just an expression. An equation is an expression that's connected with an equal sign, so it can say, hey, it's equal to this value or this other expression. So they're kind of getting introduced to that in grade 4. In grade 5, they're building that further. They're evaluating expressions, which means they're plugging in values to unknowns or variables, and they're doing that with whole numbers, but they're also working with context. They're working with visual representations, words, and they're connecting that to expressions. So it's very important that they build that contextual understanding of what expressions are, as opposed to these things that are not connected to real life context. And then in grade 6 in variables, they're going on to work specifically with adding monomials. So a monomial is basically like, it's an expression with one term. So 4n is a monomial. And then if there's plus something that has a different variable, it would be a binomial. And we're growing that. So we're just in grade 6 getting introduced to this idea of, hey, this is a monomial. It's a piece of an expression that you probably have seen in grade 4 and 5 already. Important to note that the degree of the monomials they're working with is 1, which means that there's no exponent that's above 1. So, when you get to high school, or actually 7/8, you'd be dealing with some stuff where you see squares and exponents. So you don't see any of that. It's very important to know that. And then the fact that you can add these to simplify, so 4n plus 3n is 7n, is a concept they're working up to in grade 6. So evaluating expressions. And they're also doing that to decimal tenths. So the evaluating expressions gets into the decimal realm as well. If we scroll down, we don't scroll down, but look down to the equation side of things. So they're solving equations, they're solving inequalities. So in grade 4, they're solving equations to 50, working up to 100. And then in grade 6, they've got multiple terms that they're solving equations with. It's important to note that in grade 4, they're solving inequalities up to 20, just with addition and subtraction. In grade 5, they're solving inequalities up to numbers 50, but they're dealing with multiple, one operation, but it can be addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And then in grade 6, they're solving inequalities that can have up to 2 operations, up to the number 100, and they can have all 4 operations. So this is kind of a big picture overview of the continuum of algebra that we're looking at for topic 10. So I'm going to just jump back to the LRP site. Back at the LRP site, I'm just going to take a look at a few highlights of that topic page. We've got our expectation cluster, which we are referencing. We've got the sample lessons that are from Math Up, correlations. We also have a week at a glance here that I'm going to click on and just open up. This is a week at a glance we present to you at our just-in-time sessions. So this is an accessible place that you can get that. Week at a glances are a great way of being introduced to some of the tools that are available to you, but also having some of the help of that being organized for you. And then if we scroll down again, we have our additional problems and sample problems as well. We just want to note here that our sample problems are organized with these notes that just help you connect some other strands into what we're doing right now. And this is highlighting that these particular problems are connected to number operations B2 strand and can help you gather data in that strand as well. These are some tools that are really helpful, by the way, for strategies for solving equations and inequalities. And it's so referencing that reverse flowchart and some of that number line tools for our sample problems are super helpful. They are actually also found, I'm just going to pop over to our curriculum site. This is just a teacher support under grade 6. It outlines an example of how you might use that reverse flowchart strategy. So we highly recommend you pop in there and check it out. It's just the reverse flowchart is kind of an organized way of thinking through the process of an expression, an equation, m divided by 4. So m over 4 take away 2 equals 10. Going through that step and then going backwards to solve for m. So I have 10, I'm going to add 2 to it because I took away 2, and then I'm going to multiply that value by 4 because I had divided by 4, and I should get what m is. I'm solving in that reverse flowchart way. So that's a really helpful strategy. That's from the curriculum site. And we've put it in our sample problems page. We've got some building fluency connections and the digital tools and models that are referenced at the end of the page.